Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Hey, today if you're a visitor to Cambodia, especially for you first timers, I'll give you some tips on how not to embarrass yourself here. There are things in every country that aren't culturally acceptable, even though they might be normal and acceptable where you come from. And so hopefully these tips will help, especially if it's your first time or you're just not sure about any given situation. And hopefully this video will help you out. And as always, I want to remind you that I have books for sale. And you can buy any of the books you see on your screen. There's a link in the description where you can peruse them all, including Live in Cambodia, a guide for living in the Kingdom of Wonder. And there's going to be more added this year as soon as all my writing stuff is done and edited and all that good stuff. And don't forget, you can help support the channel directly through PayPal or Ko-Fi.com. I have links down below for both of those. Your donations really help. I truly appreciate all our supporters. You really help us out. And yeah, we love you. Thank you. And if you want to go the more modern route, you should see a code on your screen, and you can scan that with your phone, and you can donate directly through True Money just by following the prompts. It'll work with any bank app, and that'll go right into my True Money account, and I can just go to any location and pick it up with no third parties involved. So that's pretty cool. And if you do that, leave me a comment, let me know what the process is, because I'm not really sure. So hopefully somebody will want to give that a try. I'm hoping anyway. So as you're probably well aware of, Cambodia is a Buddhist country, and there are certain cultural do's and don'ts that you should be made aware of so you don't embarrass yourself when you're here. And even though some of these things are, I mean, nobody's going to get mad and throw things at you and you know, kick you out of the building or the country or anything, but you might be met with some frowns and perhaps some ire from the locals. And the first thing is, well, let's get the Buddhist stuff out of the way. Don't touch anybody's head here if they're a local. It doesn't matter if you know them or how long you've known them, especially the children. You know, and in the United States, you see a kid, you want to tousle their hair and give them a little pat on the head like a dog, you know. But don't do that here. The head is considered the most sacred part of the body. There's some kind of an invisible flame of life that Buddhists believe in, I guess, and touching somebody on the head signifies you're trying to put out that flame of life or something. And it's just not culturally acceptable to touch anybody on the head here, especially the children, no matter how cute and adorable they are. Just avoid that if you can. And subsequently, the feet are considered the lowest part of the body and is considered dirty and unclean. So do not point your feet at anything or anybody. That's the equivalent back home of giving somebody the finger. Very bad mojo. So if you're in a position like at a temple where you're sitting on the ground, be sure you have your feet tucked under you, not spread out in front of you where the bottoms of your feet are visible to anybody or pointing in anybody's direction, even inadvertently, because that's considered a cultural faux pas, and you don't want to be the one to to do that. And also, that's part of the reason why when you go into temple areas or people's homes or places of businesses, not all of them, but for the most part local businesses, they ask you to remove your footwear. But a lot of that, I think, now has to do with just hygiene and cleanliness. You know, you're walking around in your shoes or your flip-flops, and it's picking up all the gunk on the ground. So they ask you to take off your shoes when you enter a building. But this will be especially true in temple areas. And it's the same thing with hats. There are certain, I went into a bank once here, and I had my hat on, and before they had a security guard outside, and before I even went in, he told me to remove my hat, please. And that would also apply to people's homes as well. So remove your headgear, remove your shoes if you're going into places with some kind of a cultural identity. Let's put it that way. Now, I know a lot of people, I've gone over to people's houses and went to take off my shoes, and they were like, oh no, you don't have to, but you know, I noticed everybody else did, so I'm not going to be the contrarian here. I'll go ahead and do it. And that's really, for a lot of these things, just pay attention and do what the locals are doing. That's usually a good indication of if what you're doing will offend somebody or not. There's also the matter of children begging. You'll see them, especially in heavily touristed areas like Siem Reap and Phnom Penh, at night, like down by Pub Street, where we are right now, the downtown area. You see a lot of cute kids. They're usually either begging or trying to sell something out of little baskets, and they'll try to give you those puppy dog eyes to get you to buy something. This is, generally speaking, a bad idea. I know it's hard to resist a child trying to sell something, and they might tell you it's for their school. They can't go to school because they don't have money, or some other excuse, but try not to do it, because generally, I mean, they're not out there doing that because that's their idea of fun. Chances are they're not keeping the money. There are adults nearby keeping watch, making sure they make money. And you're not really helping the kids. You're more or less contributing to them not going to school, because let's face it, if they can make more money by not going to school and just being out there begging, that's what the adults are going to have them do. So it's just in good form not to buy anything or give any money to children. Now, if somebody comes up and says they're hungry and you offer to buy them something to eat and they accept it, that's different. Hunger is a real problem here among locals. It's a very poor country. But I've been in a situation where they've come up and asked if they can have $1 because they're hungry, and when I offer to buy them something, they beg off because they're not really interested in the food. So just keep that in mind as well. And this might be just common courtesy and common sense, because this would apply almost anywhere, but try not to be too invasive with your pictures. If you want to photograph monks, you should ask if it's okay first. Some people here have a very old school idea about pictures. You know, whether that might be, what do you want them for? Why are you taking pictures of my kids and things like that? But also some people just don't like it. So in general, if you're going to be taking pictures of someone, it's best to ask their permission first, but be sure you always do that for monks. Because I have had some say no thank you, but most of the time they're going to be okay with it. And by asking, you're showing them that you're not trying to hide anything. And so they feel like they can trust you, because as much as possible they're trying to everybody here wants to have Cambodia represented in a fair way, but they've dealt with enough foreigners who might have ulterior motives to know that they should be cautious. Yeah, it's always a good idea to ask before taking pictures. You might even notice in my videos, as much as I can avoid it, I try not pointing the camera directly at people. Unless they're obviously trying to get in the video by yelling and waving and going, hey, hello. Then it's alright. And of course, this is another one of those things that should go without saying. Getting angry, demonstrative, and upset in public, yelling at people, losing your temper, is really not a good thing here. People will remember you, and a lot of times that might be the only situation where somebody will come up and say something to you. Now, that's not to say there's no reason to ever get upset at anything. Things are going to happen. We're all emotional people. But, I always say you got to pick your fights. And something doesn't work out and you start cussing and swearing and throwing things and slamming things around, it's not going to leave a very good impression. And people are not going to be happy to have you around. And I've known people who have been kicked out of places permanently for that very thing. So yeah, certainly you have the right to get angry at certain things if you've been scammed or manipulated or something like that, But by yelling and screaming, you're not doing anybody any good. And there are just some things over here you're gonna have to swallow. You're just gonna have to eat it, because you're gonna have no recourse legally or otherwise. That's another thing you should know. I mean, if you're a foreigner over here, unless it's something very egregious, you're probably gonna have no recourse in taking care of that here. I just know people that get upset over little things that really in the long run don't matter, isn't going to affect their lives in any significant way. But normally if you keep your cool, there's usually either a way to talk about it in a calm, civilized manner, and sometimes not, but your best recourse of action in most instances is going to be to just let it go. Take the loss, take the big L, and at the least you learned a lesson out of it, I guess. That's not always a helpful thing, that's not always something people want to hear, but it will really do you good here to not be a drunken, big loudmouth who's always demanding or complaining about everything all the time. It's just a bad look on you. It's a bad look for whatever country you're from, and yeah, it's just all around bad. Probably not good for your mental or emotional health, neither. You need ways to deal with those stressors, man. Find an outlet without having to resort to threats of violence. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Oh, and also, when it comes to driving here, I do want to point this out. You know, I'm fond of saying the only rule on the road here is that there are no rules. Of course, I mean that facetiously. Of course there are rules. They have stop signs. They have, you know, stop lights. They have, you're supposed to use your blinker and supposed to be watching out for other drivers and everything. But in Cambodia, they don't have traffic patrols. They don't have police out looking for traffic infractions. You know, they set up checkpoints every so often, and if somebody's not wearing a helmet or going the wrong way down the street, they'll wave them over to give them a fine. But it's not like back in the United States where you don't use your blinker and a cop could come out from behind a tree and give you a ticket. So sometimes all these rules that they do have are largely ignored, and it makes for some precarious situation. And so whatever you do, don't, do follow whatever rules are in place for yourself, but always be aware of what other drivers are doing. There are people that I know who've you know, gotten into accidents, nothing serious, but they've gotten into accidents because somebody else turned right in front of them from the wrong lane, and they didn't see him coming, couldn't stop in time. I mean, those kinds of things are fairly common here. So you got to kind of keep your head on a swivel and don't get lost in your own mind when you're driving. You don't want to wind up a statistic. So yeah, like I said, they every time I say there are no rules for driving here, somebody always points out, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, there are rules, of course there are. And I'm like, I understand. Yeah, I'm just saying it sarcastically, because those rules are not always followed the way they should be. And again, if you do get in an accident, I mean, if there are witnesses that you weren't in the wrong, that might help you out. But, well, just keep your head on a swivel is what I'm saying. You don't want to have to go through that hassle. All right. So be sure to check out all my links down below. Like I said, I have links for PayPal, Ko-Fi.com, and you can scan that QR code right to my True Money account. I appreciate it. There are other channels vlogging from this part of the world, and they are all listed down below. You should definitely check them out as well, of course. And my other channel, Horror Reads. If you like horror books and want to hear about the ones I've read that I would like to recommend to others, that link is also down below for that channel. Alright, from Siem Reap, Cambodia, I'll talk to you guys in the next one.